welcome back to the Hardforking channel for our Thursday update show. We've got a special guest today, Joe Saz. Welcome along, Joe.
Hey.
And also my excellent co-host, Mathematics and Leanne. How are you all?
Hi.
Hey. Hello.
So today's episode, people, obviously there's been a ton of price action. We're going to have a look at that momentarily. And then we're also going to discuss, is the world ready for Bitcoin? So Joe, look, I'll hand it over to you. If you could talk us through what's happening in the markets, and we'll get into a wider discussion on Bitcoin after that.
Yeah, so what's happening in the markets, I'm going to defend my call of Bitcoin has topped out at the $65,000 range, which is kind of the old call. And then we broke down, and my breakdown target was 35, and we actually spent a lot of time, we did hit that target, but then we dipped our toes into, the high 20s. Spent a lot of time down there. We consolidated, so we kind of had two points of price discovery throughout this bull market so far. 65K, which was a rejection, and 30K, which was some massive support. So we don't like below that. We obviously have the psychological support of 20K and the probably diamond hand steel support of 10K plus Bitcoin, right?
You're gonna say balls of steel there. Diamond hands.
There's got to be so many hands ready to accumulate down in those ranges. Yeah. So, I think all we've done is we've done what Bitcoin does historically almost every time. It goes parabolic. It fails to create price discovery, and the emotional buying that takes place therein, and the market thus engages in emotional selling inversely, and then we get pretty much these same little anatomies of a market: a parabolic increase, a crash. In this case, it was a long consolidation, and the top was a very long consolidation, weird top, so I think it threw a lot of people off. But a bull trap, which was, a good 52, 53K range, what appears to be a rollover, and, that the proof is kind of becoming more and more evident, in my opinion, that this was a bull trap, being that it really gave buyers a lot of time to build support in the order books. We came up pretty high and gave people a lot of time to look at Bitcoin. $40,000 Bitcoin is a very valuable buy. So with markets being in this state of confusion, or entering a state of confusion, furthermore, as this bull trap kind of manifests a little more completely, and people start to accept this pattern into sell-off levels, massive sell-off levels, I think that we're I think that's starting to form. I think we're starting to see that psychology, that denial is just on the horizon, and I think we're going to roll over until our next 30K wasn't the bottom kind of talk.
So retest of the 30, was that enough support?
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ow!
Okay.
Sean doesn't want to hear this. Sean's going to start going, la, la, la.
I don't think anyone wants to hear this. What are your thoughts on that, Leanne?
Well, as you know, I've been saying we don't know if it's a dead cat bounce until after the fact, right? So we have, my wave is still blue on my charts, which meant the downtrend was still intact. I did think there was an opportunity to spring forward, but we've rolled over, and my next target was 37, and we haven't quite hit that. So I wouldn't be shocked to see it another volatile move down to test the 37 fib level. Where we go from there, if Joe's saying down to 30, yeah, that's to test that prior really huge support area is going to be very interesting. And planning for probabilities and possibilities should be everyone's agenda. If you're a trader, and if you're an investor, then you know what to do. You average in.
Yeah, so Sean, when you said I don't think anyone wants to hear that, I guess it doesn't bother me, right?
So, Joe, could you maybe talk us through a few data points and maybe expand on your thinking there a bit?
So, welcome everyone to the price of Bitcoin through my eyes. So let's kind of just look at let's broaden this out a little bit. Leanne, what would you want to look at first, like the 2 hour, 1 hour, 4 hour?
Oh, well, at a bare minimum, the four.
So let's just take a look at the 4 real quick and just kind of look at what happened, right? What made me start to get bearish, and Leanne, I think you might remember, was our significant you know, distance between all-time high and all-time high, let's say 20,000 to our first all-time high, really break, let's say, maybe even this, okay, 71%. 71 pull back down to 18%, and then we pop from all-time high to 21% up, and we play the game, right? 32% ultimately to the downside. And then let's see, at that previous high, we break it vertically, all right, with the passion, to an ultimate high of 38% higher, and a pullback, so the pullbacks were about the same, 30, 27%. We're looking at a lot of similar stuff here, and we're looking at a lot of similar things to the upside with, massive moves to the upside and reasonable pullbacks, and a strong distance between all-time high and all-time high from a percentage perspective here, profit perspective. Now, that started to shift here, where you could see the distance between all-time high over the course of, a good distance here. 124 bars is 20 days or so. We were only getting a 5%, greater all-time high, even on a vertical candle, yet the same type of pullback behavior. This was what got me into the whole, topping, very different type of top than Bitcoin's used to, but we just started getting really like weaker and weaker all-time highs, and yet we had the same pullbacks, and that was the rollover. Now, I don't think this was the bull trap. I think this was just, normal market behavior after a violent, crash from an Elon Musk tweet, which I think was the narrative at the time. This crash, is what made a lot of sense. This was my 35K call, and this is what a market with undefined, price discovery gets pummeled with. A lot of doubt leads to very thick liquidity in the order books getting filled, and very aggressively. A lot of people, this is a spot market, and a lot of people did accumulate Bitcoin at some great levels relative to 65K. Now, to the bear market bottom, that's the $1 million question. But then we consolidate, and really that's what's unique, I think, about this market, in two senses, right? We have a really long consolidation top as opposed to a blow off top.
Yeah.
We have a consolidation on the pullback, and this is price discovery. Slow, shallow moves to the downside over the course of a long period of time. By my standard, that is price discovery, 100%. Same way that this is price discovery of rejection, like this is all price discovery of support. And then we pop out of there into, kind of no man's land. 52K, 53K was total no man's land. We don't really have much to say about that price range, and it was rejected. So, getting a lot of rejection in this area and then rolling over and crashing vertically, it shows you how many emotional buyers there were in this market and how we're going to engage in the same type of behavior to the downside. And I think this time around, seeing 30K is going to, really clarify the overall view of the market that, everyone does have that question, is Bitcoin going to 100K or not? And everyone thinks that it should happen this market cycle, and I have a feeling if people think that it's not happening this market cycle, they're going to pull the plug and wait till, it's too late again,
Joe, could you expand on what you mean by market cycles, and how is this cycle different? There's been a lot of debate around the length of cycles lately.
As far as length of cycles, let's just say this was a cycle, right? We went parabolic and we broke, and we ultimately ended up down at, roughly where we started. This was a market cycle, about a year earlier we started at $1,000, went parabolic, broke down, spent, a couple years playing out this descending triangle, breaking down violently into a bear market bottom. That's what I mean by a market cycle. A bull market that finishes into a bear market, that starts a bull market, that finishes into a bear market, that starts a bull market. And this is what we're in now. I mean, obviously this chart, looking at this comparison to 20K, is absolutely monumental of a move. Now, what's the difference between time here? Not much. I mean, you can see this parabolic advance happen pretty quickly. This parabolic advance happened pretty quickly as well. The magnitude might look greater, but from a percentage perspective, I don't think it's the same. We're talking around 300% there, and let's say the bull market started here. We're only talking, we're talking 626% from there. If we're talking 1,000, we're probably talking close to something, 1,500%. Okay, so it's not the same exact market, but fundamentally speaking, we have a lot of similarities in the time cycle. All right, that's just visible from the general parabolic structure here, visible from the general parabolic structure here, visible from the general parabolic structure here, just greater in magnitude because of the most of this action on the right. So the fundamental difference between this market and this market was the speculation at the time was ETFs. I'm sure, Leanne, you may remember all this. 2017 bull run.
I remember getting in at the end of the 2017 bull run.
Well,
that was seared into my brain for forever now, and how it ended.
yeah.
You were in well before.
Yeah, I got in a little before that, but this is also where I learned to trade. Where I was forged in the fire. But so fundamentally speaking, what drove that market? The talk of ETF was so heavy on everyone's mind, on everyone's tongue. I remember just in the month of from mid-November to maybe early November to early January of this year, 2017, active Coinbase users, I remember this because I wrote an article on it for Block TV. Active Coinbase users went something like from 5.5 million users to 12.5 million users just in that month alone.
Yeah, right.
Just in that time period, approximately 30 days from November to December.
Just during the parabolic
Yeah.
advance, yeah.
So they're saying that emotional nature was still 100% there. Now, there was also what was driving that emotion, right? Price action, which is common with Bitcoin, volatile price action. At the time, the speculation was Bitcoin ETFs, the SEC, the CFTC, all these discussions on what is Bitcoin, a commodity, a currency, whatever, and talk of Bitcoin becoming something that would enter mainstream adoption, for the purpose of investment, obviously meant supply would go scarce and value would go up. It just is, simple, free market math, right? And so that was the speculation. The fundamental speculation was very white collar stuff. The fundamental speculation here was just about the same. ETF might not have been the home run, but Elon Musk, MicroStrategy, white collar hands getting their, getting dirt underneath their fingernails, is what we all expect to be one of the big kickers to push us to above and beyond six figures, right? 100K is obviously when multi-million dollar companies or countries like El Salvador, whatever, start to realize that Bitcoin is an asset they need to invest in. So those are fundamentally the things that made this market so strong. Was that there was hands that wanted to accumulate Bitcoin that weren't just nerds that are trading internet nerd money. These are establishment white collar hands that want to accumulate Bitcoin to hedge against inflation and the dollar. I mean, this is a first. So yeah, this is a different market from that fundamental structure alone, and that's why I think this bear market is going to be even more painful to people that don't want to accept it. The denial here is 10 times harder because the fundamentals are 10 times stronger. But then, as we look at El Salvador, we'll see what's Bitcoin actually like in the real world.
So, yeah, two things there. We'll get to El Salvador in a moment, but obviously, Michael Saylor's participation in this market, he certainly wins Rookie of the Year award. What's your opinion on other institutional money coming into Bitcoin? Is there any knowledge you can share with us there? I know you're based out of New York. For me, the catalyst here is going to be around compliance, clarity for these institutions. Give us your thoughts on that. Is there a wave of institutional money ready to come in?
This is unpopular opinion number one. You just opened up a can of worms.
Let's do it.
The answer to your question is yes. I do believe that there is money that wants to come in, and I'm gonna hate myself for using this word, but crypto, because the thing is, a lot of people, the conversation back in 2017, 2018, and prior, and shortly after in 2019 maybe, the conversation was very simple. What is the best money? And anything else was a scam, right? That was such an easy discussion, right? Now you have what I think just need to be observed as blockchain marketplaces. You have on the blockchain, you now have money, right? And you have for so long, since its inception, right? Since its conceptual inception, right? So now you also have art. Now you have real estate, even in Decentraland, in digital worlds, right? You have, so I think that there's this like a little bit of a shift there in how we need to view this. It's weird, but that's how you got to think of the market now. It's not a conversation of what is the best money. Obviously, you can talk about the security of Ethereum and all these NFTs and things. You know, someone just copy pasted all the Frankenstein whatever NFTs and put them on a different blockchain. And what's to say, right? What's to say you can't do that to any other NFT on any other blockchain, right? And I totally agree with those arguments, but that's an educated market participant that's been here for a number of years that's smart enough. Is institutional money smart enough? No, no, absolutely not. You know, did Blockbuster, you know, with all its institutional money and prowess, figure out that the internet was its next move? No, you know, I don't expect everyone to be smart here. You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I expect, yeah, you know, if you have real estate ad space that you can purchase on Decentraland and you know people are going to spend time there, and you want to
Yeah.
put a JP Morgan sign there.
You're hitting on like such a good thing when you said Blockbuster. We all know what happened to Blockbuster. They could
Yeah.
not keep up with the change in what was happening and user demand and new tech. And now, you know, it's the same thing, like you're saying, exactly right. I actually, you just sparked that in me to think about that.
They even had a leg up with block in their name. They could have been like blockchain buster.
Blockchain movies. I know. It's, if you think about all the businesses that got left behind, I mean, we don't think about them because we can't even remember them, but the point is no one could adapt or change, just like during the pandemic with online stuff. So you highlight a really good point in that it will be a matter of a race to where it's utilized, where the next trend is. I know with art, we've been talking a lot about that on this show. And yeah, it's a matter of which institutions are willing to keep up with and engage with what's happening.
Yeah, look, to me, it feels exactly. I began a business rolling out infrastructure of the internet in the mid 90s. It was a decent sized operation, so I sort of know how that played out intimately. To me, this feels exactly like the late 90s. Late 90s, we had 140 million users of the internet. We've got exactly 140 million users of crypto right now, but crypto is growing at 140% a year, whereas the internet was growing at less than half that back in the 90s. So I'm extremely bullish on what I'm seeing in crypto, but to your point, Joe, you know, a lot of institutional money is coming into these other blockchains. Once again, to me, it looks like the late 90s, where VPNs or these virtual private networks sort of dominated the internet. Ultimately, everyone moved away from that and they went to the internet. So I see the same thing playing out with blockchain. A lot of these smaller blockchains just will simply not be around in 5 years. They'll fail. Anything you've done on there, gone, in my opinion. So interoperability is going to be crucial. I think, you know, what's going on with Bitcoin, the Lightning Network, the potential of, you know, well, I guess there is smart contracts on Bitcoin now, but ultimately where I'm going with this is I think most things are going to end up on these public blockchains. So, you know, that my words of warning there are to people sort of playing around in smaller blockchains that I don't think will be around in the future. But coming back to what you were talking about there, Joe, you know, do you think we'll see a separation in the market? You know, you're painting a slightly bearish case on Bitcoin there, but do you think the other assets in the space could ultimately separate? We'll see different price action across these different asset classes? Because as you say, Bitcoin is clearly the best money, but these other things are quite a different prospect altogether. So do you see a separation coming?
I haven't been on camera to discuss these things in a very long time, but the answer to your question, all right, I'm going to give you the truth as to how I see it. Yes, I actually think there might even be a market cap flipping. I think the true market cap of HEX is number 3. At you know, it's this. A lot of people are using some old metrics here to measure the the market cap of cryptocurrency versus cryptocurrency as a whole, right? I think we might even see it. Look, we saw $16 billion get sacrificed for a pulse chain token, which no one even knows when it's going to launch, if it's going to launch, right? And $16
How much
billion
was sacrificed?
What?
How much was sacrificed in the
16 to 17 billion is that in total.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
a couple hundred million sent to the research association for
yeah, yeah.
anti-aging.
You know, I don't really have. My thoughts on Richard Hart are that he's an intellectual. I think that if you're gonna debate with him, it needs to be from an intellectual perspective. Of what I've seen, I don't believe that everyone he's interviewed or all the interviews I've seen have been between other intellectuals that are gonna stay in that intellectual ballpark with him and play his game even better
Yeah.
than he does potentially. So I see a lot of people fall for Richard Hart's traps, which I think, maybe in the moment it doesn't matter who you are, you always can get trapped in a debate, right? So I think he's a formidable opponent, and I think he is a true believer in what he's doing. Um, I don't think he's a full-blown malicious scammer. I think he is an old-timey, OG Bitcoiner. I think if he says, I'm concerned about problem X with Bitcoin, I believe he has done his due diligence and has served the time to at least be heard. Do I agree with him? Not quite. Do I see a lot of people give him back successful arguments? Absolutely not. And that's why I was bringing up that this market is now multiple marketplaces. It's the conversation 3-4 years ago is not the same conversation as it is today. Richard Hart adapted with the market, so he makes a lot of people look bad. So that's my thoughts on Richard Hart. I think
Yeah.
if I was to debate him or discuss anything with him, it would have to be knowing the fact that he is a formidable opponent. He is to be respected intellectually. Um, and I don't think he's a malicious scammer. My thoughts on HEX, are that I agree that what he did is technically genius. He created a blockchain that used smart contracts, all of which prevented him from getting any sort of legal liability. There's no need for money transmitter licenses, and I'm very familiar with all this stuff because I'm the CEO of Embly, a prepaid Bitcoin debit card, right? And I have to go through all these things or whatever and run through all these policies and procedures to remain regulatory compliant. But Richard Hart, where I had to go within and color within the lines to create my good or service, right? What Richard Hart created was basically a concept of banking using smart contracts on Ethereum, which we can all debate sucks and is going to fail and probably will, right? Still a Bitcoin maximalist here. But what he did was create something and use his genius to do so, and he succeeded. So I think that is true. It is a centralized shitcoin, but when you stake your coins, it's not going to a staking wallet, and therefore there is no property by any central authority. It's getting burned, and then those coins that you burned according to your sacrifice period are going to get minted on that block and given to you the day that your burned tokens or your staked tokens were staked or back in with your percentage in full, right? So he did all these things that I thought were pretty creative. So I think that has to be respected. Now again, I still think Bitcoin is the best money. Now moving into the discussion, is there going to be the need for another money like HEX, right, which is now the third by market cap by true value? I think it's possible, but I'm the only reason why a multi-coin ecosystem or a multi-blockchain ecosystem is even on the table right now, with Bitcoin obviously being the best money and other things being used for other purposes, is because now that there are multiple marketplaces, and as you mentioned, it feels like, or it looks like, by some metrics, we're in the late 90s of the dot-com bubble. I actually think that we're like 5 years before that. I think we're like right now starting to figure out that there is a dot-com bubble to be had. There is far more things that we're doing with blockchain, art, real estate, money, right? I'm sure some shitcoiner can sit here and talk about 15 other things. Okay, I'm not that guy, but I'm just saying that I think the dot-com bubble is now starting, and the dot-com bubble is the promise of what blockchain is actually a solution to the world for. Money, sure, it's the best. Bitcoin is the best money of all human history by far. Now, is it the best way to stamp art and turn a Banksy portrait that Banksy painted himself, and then some dude lit on fire after taking a picture, and turning that picture into a series of numbers and letters? Is that a valuable use of blockchains? I argue absolutely not. So, I mean, I think it's going to take time now for the market to build these you know, these concepts of what is right and wrong for a blockchain, what is internet, what's good for the internet and the dot-com bubble. What can we practically do with the internet right now today? Can we stream Netflix back in 1999, 2000, 2001? Absolutely not. You know, I don't even think if images were really easy to get without having to wait the screen to like load up, you know, 5 parts of an image, right? So I just think that we're at the beginning of that, you know, dot-com bubble of the blockchain space starting to become a space that is clearly something that can be, you can do more than just money with a blockchain. I think that's starting to happen amongst the shitcoinery going on, and I think it's going to get crazier and crazier, and I think that, you know, the dot-com bubble is coming for Bitcoin. I think this is a real one.
I think we're at the throw the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks phase.
I mean, we don't even see white papers anymore. We used to see white papers for shitcoins. Tron had a fucking white paper. Excuse my language.
A copied one.
Tron copied a white paper. At least they copied it and wrote and put it in Chinese, right?
Yeah, look, I agree with most of what you've said there. You know, look, I came into the space early 2016, and you know the discussions, and they were intense, and they were every day, and they were 24/7. It was all about this financial experiment we felt we were part of. It doesn't feel like that with Bitcoin anymore. I mean, Bitcoin to me now is mainstream. I also, obviously, I've been through the fork wars, if you want to call them that, hence the name of the brand. So I've got a pretty good knowledge of what's gone down in Bitcoin. What do you see the future of BTC, of Bitcoin being? Are there elements within that space still that would like to see a hell of a lot more privacy, anonymity built in? Do you think that could cause divisions moving forward?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I think those things are very important. Scalability, mix that into all those things, in security. Maintain security of the network. Increase scalability, which is being done through various methods, right? And then obviously move into, you know, aggregating transactions, doing things that can anonymize your Bitcoin more, anonymize your transactions and such. So I think that is kind of like the process. You know, security, always that base layer of, does the product work as intended, yes or no? And that answer always has to be yes. I think there is anonymity in Bitcoin as long as you do your due diligence. Obviously, if you buy your Bitcoin on Coinbase and I send my Bitcoin to someone else's Coinbase account, then that's clearly going to be traceable on a blockchain. Now, I do think Bitcoin is anonymous, but are there anonymity features that can be enhanced? Absolutely. Am I the genius to tell you which ones and how? Absolutely not. But I have, you know, seen and heard most privacy coins failing. Obviously, the security of Bitcoin we can't afford that failure. Bitcoin is anonymous if you do things the right way. So would I like to see, you know, a news article about Bitcoin attempting to solve the anonymity issue, let's say, and then, you know, unfortunately setting us back some period of time, or even a level of trust, a large level of trust, because we've compromised the network? That would be problematic. So I think that is how you would approach the situation. That's why there's the talk of a multi-coin ecosystem. Is Bitcoin going to grow at the rate of a centralized shitcoin? No, because a centralized shitcoin has a leader that says, this is my roadmap. Bitcoin has tens of thousands of participants that disagree, and that is the trust of a trustless network. That's what takes time to build in a trustless network, is all these things. Security as the base layer, right? And then into the working product, obviously been done. Scalability, 2017 was the really big start of that whole discussion, I feel like. And then and now into adopting Bitcoin through with Lightning Network as the medium of exchange, and on-chain transactions as a store of value type narrative. So yeah, just a lot of changes over the years. I might have got lost in the weeds there.
Joe, our tagline on this channel is crypto culture. Those years, sort of 2016, 2017, even 2018, I think I would say there was definitely a Bitcoin community. You know, it was quite a small group of guys, you being one of them, how would you describe the Bitcoin community now?
You know,
Is there one? Is there one now, or is this a totally
yeah,
different animal now?
I've gone to Bitcoin events and the camaraderie is still just as strong as it has been. Does it feel like it's there on Twitter? In my eyes, not quite. You know, I remember back in the early days, there was a lot more of us arguing over, arguing against other projects, right? Ripple, everyone hated Ripple, so there'd be tons of people ripping on Ripple, and there'd be tons of people ripping on Litecoin, and tons of people ripping on Bitcoin Cash. And I just don't really see that type of stuff going on as much anymore. So it's kind of
No.
like a different crypto Twitter. There are some arguments here
Do you
and there,
think?
but
Do
it's
you think
almost.
they're not? Do you think they're not arguing because it's just been settled in time enough that we just accept the Bitcoin standard, and then everything else is arguable in the
I just
shitcoin
feel
world?
like we're all I feel like we all know each other's names and we've all seen each other
It's
enough
true.
times. So it's like this a-hole is saying
There's
this,
nothing to
you know.
argue about anymore.
Yeah, it's like we all have seen each other. We all know each other. I've even shaken the hands of my enemies on Twitter, right?
You've
And
settled the
and it
science of Bitcoin, yeah?
yeah, it's like, you
Settled.
know what? Let the market decide this because even though I disagree with you 100%, it still doesn't matter what I think.
Yeah.
You know, that's what a free
Hmm.
market is. A free market is the ability for everyone to try to,
Yeah.
to pray that their baby Dogecoin pumps to the moon, right? Or to invest and to be analytical individuals and invest in, deflationary money, right?
Yeah,
Or
I
something
feel
like that.
like the Bitcoin argument on Twitter's been won. Like, you guys have battled it out for years now, and the consensus has been formed that it's sound money, and now it's just, yeah, a matter of, as we're going to talk about, is the world ready for it? I think we've agreed that it's has its standard, but now is the world ready?
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, let's move on to that. I mean, getting us to this point, obviously, we've had these Bitcoin forks. The block size was kept small to effectively enable individuals to run a node to keep that network secure. We've now obviously seen the likes of Michael Saylor come into the space. A lot of corporate take up of Bitcoin. Very, very different feel and crowd, alluding to what I mentioned before about the community. How do you see Bitcoin moving forward from here? Obviously, we now have countries adopting it as what's the word I'm looking for? Not legal tender. What else?
Yeah,
Yeah, legal
tender.
tender.
Yeah,
El
Yeah,
Salvador.
legal thing.
Okay.
yeah. That's fine.
Talk us through that and how's that work? And obviously, from their point of view, my understanding is it's really based around the ability to improve remittances, which make up about 80%, I think, of El Salvador's GDP. How does Bitcoin factor in here, and is Lightning necessary? Is it integral for an El Salvador or anyone that's wanting to improve the remittance side of things?
So let's start with that question. Is Lightning integral? I think absolutely yes is the answer. And in fact, it's very exciting to me. I was talking about this at PorkFest back in June. We were, teaching about Bitcoin, and I was saying Lightning is kind of like a 101 topic now. Back in 2017, it was advanced. Now you can run a dual functionality on-chain Lightning Network as well app on your phone wallet, and you can use the Lightning Network easily, right? Seamlessly, fast. So yeah, is it a part of the system? One of the things, and again, this is all stuff that I've seen in pictures. I don't have any friends out there in El Salvador living the Bitcoin life, and I'm not, asking anyone specific questions here, but I've seen pictures of, these McDonald's Lightning invoices and stuff like that, and it's like this really interesting thing to see that since El Salvador, September 7th, declared that Bitcoin was legal tender, or whatever, we want to call it, that forced every single merchant to have to accept Bitcoin. Now, I think corporations, knowing that this was on the horizon, probably needed to understand that they had one of two choices: hold the Bitcoin or sell the Bitcoin. The Lightning Network is the best way to move your Bitcoin immediately to another counterparty where that Bitcoin can then be exchanged for dollars. And I think that this is important because I think that inherent lack of trust of a new internet gold is going to drive people nuts, as it has been. I don't think, there's been a few times in the past that I believe Bitcoin really was ready to be adopted and it wasn't. One of the biggest times was the Yellow Vest protests in France, when they said they were going to attack central banks and banking by pulling all their money out and cashing out and putting all their money under their beds. And everyone, I'm just thinking, why not use Bitcoin, right? Why don't you just pay the baker in Bitcoin and pay this guy and that guy and trade amongst each other and use Bitcoin? And now you're using a completely different monetary system. You don't even have to be using that trashy cash. You know what I'm saying? There's been a number of times where Bitcoin has been ready for the world and the world has not been ready for Bitcoin. Obviously, someone had to get pushed into the fire here. El Salvador's leaders have chosen to take that leap of faith, and I think it will pay off in time. It's very interesting talking about market fundamentals, when they jumped in, at what price, how much they bought, total amount 700 Bitcoin, buying dips, buying a lot of, the last thing I want to do is be a country bragging about buying dips. I'd rather be Elon Musk bragging about how my Bitcoin was the most profitable decision I ever made for all my corporations ever. So I think the people are, this is, the world needs this. Obviously it needs a place that probably wasn't ready for Bitcoin to adopt it, to really show that it's going to be hard to adopt. Yeah, because think about the US adopting Bitcoin. I don't think people would be really, burning down Bitcoin ATMs like I've seen videos of.
Yeah, we're going to show a little clip of that. Jesse had found it during the week, and we'll show it to you now. And Jesse and I and Sean in the chat were trying to work out why are we seeing images like this, burning down machines, protesting. In your opinion, is it a lack of education? Is it feeling threatened about something they don't know much about? Like, what are your thoughts on the El Salvadorian people?
Yeah, I think both of those things are tied to education. Like they're forced into accepting Bitcoin as legal tender, and like, it's like, being forced to accept that a piece of paper represents gold, right? Imagine how crazy that must have been. Imagine how crazy it must have been.
There's a lot of forcing going on in the world at the moment. We know that doesn't go down very well.
Of course, right?
So to me, it's almost almost sort of an anti-Bitcoin ethos, being forced to use it.
Yes.
It's gonna have that. I think any movement's gonna have an opposition and a pro and against, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, being forced, if you're 80 years old, 70 years old, and you've been running a shop that sells cigarettes and freaking fruit snacks and drinks for the past 60 years, and your forefather before that was running the same shop, and now you have to accept digital gold. Yeah, I can imagine there's going to be a bit of a, what the hell, right? Yeah, it just makes sense. I can imagine most pizza places over here that I order pizza from would be like, what the heck do I do? How do I trade my staff on Bitcoin, right? Imagine how hard Bitcoin is just from a basic perspective. And now imagine requiring every single entity to have to accept Bitcoin. Everywhere I go, no one knows what Bitcoin is except Bitcoin meetups, so I think this is a natural part of the process. I always say there's one or two ways you come into Bitcoin: voluntarily or kicking and screaming. And there's obviously advantages of voluntarily. Kicking and screaming usually ends wrong.
We could do this the easy way or the hard way.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, look, Joe, it's an interesting one for me because, if I look back, 2016, 2017, even 2018, the Bitcoin community are always encouraging everyone, come on, you got to run a node. This is what Bitcoin's all about. You got to support the network, be your own bank, can't be shut down, etc. There's not actually a huge amount of Bitcoin nodes. That still amazes me. Your average individual just hasn't, even though they would say I'm a hardcore Bitcoiner, they're not running a node. So to see El Salvador, even it's another step onwards. You got to figure out a Lightning network as well. So I'm slightly confused about how that's all playing out. For me, obviously, I live pretty much completely in a crypto world, and your card is being a big part of that now. I move my crypto on there. Where Visa's accepted, I can spend, what was crypto. But yeah, So maybe you can sort of comment on the other rails that are available for people in the crypto space, and do you think this El Salvadorian situation is going to be a success?
The hard
But that's
question.
that's a great question. I think it's going to be a success. Look, if Bitcoin goes down to, let's say, my most bearish target of about, still in 5 figures, let's just say on the right side of 5 figures, below 20K though. Yeah, that's going to stink for El Salvador. Let's say they have 700 Bitcoin and they decide not to buy any more dips until the next consolidation level. And let's say that next consolidation level goes straight to 15K. Bam. Now El Salvador will have lost 700 times approximately 43,000, let's say, a couple millions, and then they start buying, and they start averaging out. Michael Saylor will be back down to his average, or maybe a little bit below it. Elon Musk well below his, if he's still holding. So, I think it'll just be interesting to see how citizens react to a bear market when the country is using Bitcoin as part of their reserves. I think that's one of the most exciting things. Like just from a third part, I don't want to be there. I don't want to be the country that has to throw sticks and stones at my government because they bought Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to be involved in all that drama. But I am curious to see. Look, if this is a bear market and that is all going to play out, and let's say the theory is correct or my theory is correct. I am curious to see that second half of the equation that I don't think a lot of people are curious about. But I think go ahead, Leanne.
I was just thinking, it's such a brave move to put some of your reserves into Bitcoin, and like you said, someone has to jump into the fire and do it. And my own sentiments are, I hope to God they are not made a laughing stock of, because that could very easily happen.
But how could they be? The only way, if they're made a laughing stock, that's just because certain people are deciding to laugh.
We know what the media likes to do, don't we?
Right.
Well, the name's better. Their old currency was called the colon.
Oh, that's right, the colon. I guess when I mean a laughing stock is the power of the media. And what they'll do, as an example, to a country like that, they will rip them to shreds. Yeah. That worries me, because I want bravery rewarded, not punished.
Stay strong. I guess they gotta just stay strong.
Diamond hands.
They're gonna have to have some diamond hands. I mean, imagine if it was China, they would just say, "This is our new plan, and if you have anything to say, you'll end up in a camp."
Eat a dick.
Joe. Look, sorry to cut you. Go on there.
No, we're just chatting here.
Yeah, the sort of second part of the question there was about payment rails. El Salvador. For me, obviously, there's a lot of countries that have Bitcoin on the balance sheet. It's in a sovereign wealth fund, etc. And to me, that's such an obvious use case of Bitcoin. So El Salvador, having it as a legal tender and everyone has to accept it. The infrastructure issues there. It's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out with Lightning. But talk us through the other payment rails out there. Obviously, you're involved with a credit card. I've used it extensively. I was involved with what Emily were doing quite a while back. It's a new incarnation now. Tell us about how you see the ability to use crypto evolving. Obviously, we've looked at El Salvador, the Lightning Network, remittances. For other crypto users, what payment rails are there now? Ease of use. Talk us through what you were doing and the bigger picture.
As far as payment rails, there was something I thought was also very necessary for a country to mandate such a thing. Like a new currency, a digital currency like Bitcoin, right? Was the country had to make it easy for people to convert that Bitcoin back to whatever fiat currency or whatever they were using before. I think that standard of providing that service is very important. You need people to be able to use gold and carry gold little coins in their pockets and use dollar bills if they so choose, up until the point where everyone or the majority of people agree, you know what, I do prefer having a handful of bills in my wallet, and I can move from place to place and I can hand a bill to someone and get some change back, right? So we kind of need to see that whole thing happen, and there was still the option to use both. Now in El Salvador, is there that option? There's two things going on. First and most importantly, goods and services aren't priced relative to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still in a state of price discovery at 65,000, at 30,000, at 45,000, at 10. It's Bitcoin's been all, spent time all over the place, right? It's not at a million, and yet it could and should be. So things aren't, Bitcoin is not at a price where every loaf of bread of this standard of quality is worth this amount, right? Bitcoin is not at that level. So that doubles the need, in my opinion, for there to be a payment rail where you can move that Bitcoin back to something stable, if that is what you prefer. And by stable, I mean a fiat currency that is inflationary and losing you money, likely lots of money, especially post-COVID pandemic, starting 2020. So anyways, let's just say you need to give people that option. Now, what other rails are there? My understanding was that a big part of this and the success of this was because of an individual named Jack Mallers. Interestingly enough, we haven't heard much from him or about him for a long time, and I just, everyone's been kind of asking each other, hey, have you, I haven't heard a darn thing. I don't know what's going on, but his, in Strike, creating a payment rail, or like, exchanges creating payment rails like Bitfinex, and I think Kraken is the other one, if I'm not mistaken, creating methods for you to send Lightning Network Bitcoin, right? It's still Bitcoin, but be able to sell it, right? That's one of the most important things. It moves fast. Now make it so people can get their money fast. Does that rail exist? I don't know enough about El Salvador and how they've structured everything. I do believe that rail does, or mostly does, exist. I can't imagine you could force people to adopt a currency that fluctuates this violently. One day, yeah, if your bread is worth, your entire grocery bag was worth, your whole cart was worth 15% more or less, the day before. I think that's a little too much to digest right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, this is where I'm even more confused about the El Salvador situation, because if I take a payment rail like what you offer with Embly, I have never put Bitcoin onto that card. Now, I agree with your good friend Tone Vase. He's a big fan of this card because there's no shitcoin involved, as he calls it. You don't have to buy another cryptocurrency to be able to use the card. Yeah, so that's fantastic with you guys. But at the same time, as I say, I wouldn't put Bitcoin onto that card because that's my piggy bank. That's my gold bar. The shit coins that I trade, I definitely, I move to Tether or ETH, and then I liquidate onto that card and spend it wherever I need to, wherever Visa is accepted. So for me, I can live completely in the crypto world with the payment rail that your company is providing. So once again, the El Salvadorian situation just confuses the hell out of me, because if I was forced to spend my Bitcoin, that's nonsensical to me.
Mm-hmm. But that is part of the Bitcoin future. It is a peer-to-peer electronic cash, as intended. Do we want to spend our Bitcoin as investors? 9 out of 10 times, no. Is a Bitcoiner willing to spend their Bitcoin? Yeah, a man bought 2 pizzas or a pizza or whatever, Bitcoin Pizza Day, for 30,000 Bitcoin, right? It's needed these moments. It's needed moments where traders cash out. There's needed moments where miners cash out. It's needed moments where retailers cash out, because Bitcoin goes up in value. Trading is a zero-sum game for the most part. Investing isn't quite. You make money, you take some profit. Obviously the idea for any economy and any money is to be making more than you spend. So I think that would be the goal in a Bitcoin economy, right? Would be, if everything is relative, to goods and services in Bitcoin, yeah, you'd want to provide more service than you spend, right? That's the same with the dollar. Obviously, you can't live outside your means.
I was just going to bring up the dollar. We don't we don't think about that the Australian dollar just dropped 17% over X time. We still spend it, even though we lost our purchasing power. So I guess we want to get to a point where we're not really phased by the fluctuations, just as we are. The general public does not even entertain the thought that the Australian dollar to the US dollar just lost its buying power. So a day will come when that's possible, I guess, but we're a long way from that. But yeah, most other currencies, I mean, I don't know, I'm just speaking for myself. When I used to be on the Australian dollar, I never thought about, what it was, comparisons to the US dollar. If I was buying a car at that point in time, how much I lost if I converted. I never thought about that. I just spent it. So I don't know if that's sort of to the point of transactional Bitcoin, that we hope that some solutions, a stable, pegging it to a stable coin would be a good solution. But again, it's education, and when people don't know that they can do these things, it's a long way off complete.
Yeah. So here's a good question for you all then, because obviously we're talking about a Bitcoin economy. Leanne's talking about, Aussie dollar, US dollar losing value. Ultimately, all money is just a representation of time, right? That's all money is. But how then when we sort of get to a Bitcoin economy, how do you think we're going to, I'm talking about denominating it in time. So obviously at the moment we've got real inflation of around 20%. So you're losing 20% of your time going off to a job at the moment. But when when Bitcoin sort of reaches that level and it does find sort of a price point, and there is that economy of actually using it around it, how do you think we'll value that? Will it be in kilojoules, kilowatts? What sort of unit do you think would be? What are we going to use? Obviously, at the moment, it's US dollars.
I'm gonna recycle a phrase here: the time value of money. Now, to comment on what you said earlier, yes, the El Salvador situation, the Bitcoin and the liquidation rails and all that, yes, it does get hairy and confusing. And I wanted to note that it is a little hairy and confusing to even myself. So I don't have the best answers for you and all that, and I do wish I could serve you up some better answers, but I think we do need to see a bit more and learn a bit more from the ground, get more articles out, and maybe even attend, which I plan to attend, the Adopting Bitcoin conference in El Salvador. I'll learn a little bit more about it then, but I just do want to acknowledge your confusion is justified in my book, certainly. Now, on to the second part here. Bitcoin adoption. I'm sorry. I know I talked. Oh, the time value of money, and so what's the question exactly? Measuring this time value of money?
So at the moment we denominate everything against the US dollar. Every price we talk about of a crypto is against the US dollar. So I'm talking in terms of all money really just being a reflection of time. So if there's rampant inflation, you're going off to do a job. You're having to work 20% longer for the same return. Yeah. And that's what we're having right now. So that macro case for Bitcoin is really strong. But once we get to a point where Bitcoin really is actually used as a currency, you mentioned before, peer-to-peer cash, certainly not that at the moment. It's that digital gold for me. But when we do reach that point, what is the unit of value going to be? Are we going to be talking about a Bitcoin is worth X amount of US dollars, or is it going to be the energy consumption of proof of work? How do you think it's going to be denominated?
That's actually a beautiful question, and one of my favorite kind of exploration topics into Bitcoin and the future it creates is how many, it's a paradigm shift. It shifts many paradigms, taxation, all types of things, and so this is one of those big questions to me as well. How will it shape this paradigm of how your time is measured against the value of another's, right? Let's use a current example, and I like to use just politics to make it simple. Right now, you lose a third of your paycheck in the United States. It gets taken out of your paycheck. It gets sent to the government. A president gets elected, and they walk down the street in New York City. And you'll have a ton of people with signs saying "I hate your guts," and you'll have a ton of signs saying "We love your guts," right? And it doesn't matter. The dude's gonna walk down the street, man, woman, black, white, whatever, gonna walk down the street, and they're gonna hold their head high because they know they're taking your money, from the moment you make it, before you even get it in your own bank account. Now that paradigm shifts with something like Bitcoin, right? Now you have to be a governing body, a politician that would say, hey, I need that money, please. I need you to pay for my fabulous lifestyle, my private jets, and my security, and my this, and my that, and my all these things that politicians are getting as a result of being politicians, and really not serving their constituents, or at least what a lot of people believe to be the case, right? From a president's level all the way down to, senators and, even mayoral level type stuff, right? Smaller municipality type politics, right? So yeah, it changes so many things. And how do you measure your time, like, against something like that? Well, how would a politician then justify their time to say, hey, my time is worth a third of your paycheck. Me and my bros up over here are entitled to making decisions for 30% of your money that you make, and all your friends and your parents and so forth, right? So it changes a lot. Your question is very, very good. I think it creates what I argue to be from a pyramid type structure, a hierarchical type structure with a king at the top and servants at various layers beneath them, right? This is a corporate structure. This is a hierarchical structure in monarchies throughout, governments over time. Our current government obviously is a pyramid with the president at the top, despite its checks and balances system, right? So, damn.
So you're just talking about dismantling the mechanics of what we already have around money, because
you create a different type of service. No longer is it all just about service to yourself. The higher up you go, it's now more of a circle, and then at any point in this circle, you are not only serving yourself, but you're now serving the paradigm, right? And that's what creates your value or your contribution to society. What if politics was simply an app that said swipe left and swipe right? I want to put on this ugly parking space that's been a dirt space or whatever for so long. I think we should all build a park there. This is the town of X, and every person in X proves their legitimacy of participating in this election, which Americans have to do and every other country has to do to participate in any election anyways. And then you swipe left or you swipe right on this political suggestion by unnamed individual or named individual. It doesn't matter, right? Now you have a different time value of money. Some freaking stay-at-home mom or something, not to put any disrespect on stay-at-home moms, but, well, had the idea, I want to build a park at this corner, and bam, now she's a politician, right? Like, that could change the time value of money of someone who sits there collecting money to make decisions that someone just made for, everyone, and inputted some details on an app and then said swipe left or swipe right, right? It could totally change a ton of things. So that's kind of my point. I do think it will change a lot of things. And how does it? Well, it measures your time differently. Do we all think that the time value of, people that uphold society like teachers is more valuable than that of maybe a musician or a basketball player? I'll tell you what, I think more money should go to an education across the country than to sporting events, and to all this stuff. Like, it's crazy all the way that all this money moves around, right? So I think there's a lot of things that'll have to be measured. What is the actual value of attending a movie in Bitcoin, attending a sports event in Bitcoin, paying your children to become smarter in Bitcoin, right? There's different values associated to these things. Your children eating healthier food versus eating McDonald's, right? Now you have different values for time, right? And that is measured by a different type of free market with more options due to this shift in the paradigm.
But see, we're still valuing, when we're talking in these terms, we're still talking about Bitcoin against a US dollar. We're associating that US dollar value to it. So what I find fascinating is, this will sound so far-fetched for most of the people watching this, but we have to remember that most fiat currencies have failed. And the current ones we use haven't been around for that long. So for me, Bitcoin represents this sort of parallel economy. It's just this, it's almost like a safety net. Yes, I consider it a great investment, but it's, it's that safety net, and for me it'll always be there. So what I find, what a really sort of interesting, fascinating thought is, should fiat currencies really start failing en masse, we have some sort of global catastrophe, or Bitcoin just proves to be better money, what is going to be the unit of value? Because at the moment we have this big debate around, the environmental impact of proof of work of Bitcoin mining. But I kind of see it quite differently. I see it as an arms race of who can come up with the best and most efficient use of energy. And Bitcoin could really be a driver of that, because ultimately, if Bitcoin is going to replace these fiat currencies, the unit of value is energy. So if you've got the best source and production of efficient
if you've
energy,
got the best volcano,
you're the bank.
trying to say.
So Bitcoin could actually, on a large scale, be very environmentally beneficial.
I agree
Because
with that statement.
at the moment we just, Bitcoin is valued against the US dollar.
I mean, it can live side by side still. Why does it have to be and or?
No, I'm just saying that bigger picture. If because you hear a lot of Bitcoin maximalists will talk in terms of it replaces the monetary system.
Yeah, like hyper Bitcoinization type talk, mass adoption type talk. Yeah,
Years in the future.
Yeah, most people speculate this to be some, probably 5 to 10 year type future stuff. And that's, a lot of Bitcoiners are pretty Bitcoiny about this, pretty certain. Yeah, it's, but you were saying something that I was latching onto earlier. What were you saying? There was something I wanted to talk about. You were just talking about it, when you were setting this up.
I mean, it's two things. That money really is just it's your time. It's the value of your time. But how potentially will Bitcoin be valued in the future if it really does take over monetary systems? Because you can't value it against the US dollar in that scenario. So it would have to be the energy cost.
Energy cost. I think more about just the market. The mining markets are going to be the mining markets, and I don't think much is going to change there other than demand will increase to mine Bitcoin, because that's going to be, think about it like this. Every country has resources, right? But right now it doesn't matter if you're in the desert or if you're in the jungle or if you're in, the Great Plains or if you're in the Antarctica, whatever, right? You can run computers and you can mine the most scarce asset on planet Earth equally. You all have the same opportunity in Iceland, in China, in America, right? So yeah, this thing is there. Do I think that this global competition to mine, let's say state-sponsored global competition to mine even, does it change much? It does, in the sense that it adds security to the Bitcoin network, and I think that is also the incentive of governments to do so, especially governments in debt to one another. How many governments are in debt to China, particularly the United States. So it's kind of funny, this Bitcoin FUD talk about China wanting to ban Bitcoin. Sure, it's terrible for their people to use because China is a very oppressive nation and a very oppressive government, but it's probably their best hedge against the US dollar failing, because in theory, if we wanted to pay back Chinese debt, we can just print money and then send them a plane full of cash, right? So yeah, Bitcoin, as a hyper adopted currency is also something else. It's we talked about mining and its competition for the world to be able to mine the most rare resource on Earth, which is now Bitcoin, 3 million or less left. And now every country has the ability to get it. Obviously, early adapters are probably the luckiest ones. And then what happens in the future in a hyper Bitcoinization future, let's call it, is Bitcoin, let's say the dollar loses and it just inflates so badly, and goods and services run up against the dollar so badly that everyone wants to use Bitcoin. Bitcoin starts to just go up to a point where it becomes the standard and no longer is Bitcoin relative to a dollar, but a dollar relative to a Bitcoin, right? And so I think that's that flip that we're kind of trying to get to with hyper Bitcoinization, is goods and services relative to Bitcoin. Maybe let's say a Satoshi, a sat, is $1, and the same way that you would measure $1 worth of time or $15 an hour, right, at a restaurant is 15 sats an hour at a McDonald's, right? So it's just about measuring your time against Bitcoin at a value when Bitcoin is more likely globally adopted and therefore more stable of an asset because it is less speculative and more fundamentally adopted and sound, and more financial institutions or whatever governments have gotten involved in the security of Bitcoin for their own sake, as well as the sake of every other individual, every sovereign individual that wants to engage in the Bitcoin network as well.
Sorry for dominating the conversation here, Jesse and Leanne, but as you know, this was a Bitcoin only brand for a very long time, so I get very excited when I get a Bitcoin maximalist
Talk
come
about
on.
Bitcoin. Enjoy.
I did have a very dystopian thought this morning though, looking at Twitter. Our friend Tone Vase had posted a picture of Mad Max and said, "This is where Australia is headed." And I was looking at the picture this morning thinking, if this is where we're headed, this throws Bitcoin out the door and we go back to gold, because there'll be no computers running, there'll be no...
Yeah.
That's a great point. I mean,
I know,
Bitcoin
so it made me go there, right? And I was like, oh, that's it.
Well, that's true. I've made a close friend out here where I am now, and he is like, he's the perfect example of someone who at first I thought, oh, he's gonna love Bitcoin, he's gonna love crypto, and then when I asked him, he was like, no, dude, like I like, he keeps cash under his mattress, he has dogs, he works out all day, keeps about like the local community, and he was like, I don't trust. He's like, I don't trust banks and stuff. And I was like, well, that's why you should like Bitcoin. I don't trust banks either. He's like, yeah, but I don't trust technology. He's like, I don't trust any of that. He's like, I need to be able to fucking fight you to the death and then go grow my crops. And I was like, yeah, I kind of need you on my side too then, actually. I was like, I'm going to keep you on the left here, and then I'll have the Bitcoin on my right, and then, then I'll survive.
Keep working on that guy, Jesse. You got to convert him.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like I said, I might just let him do his thing and just rely on him if Bitcoin does fuck up.
Stay close to that one.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, look, it's an interesting one because, you've almost got that sort of tragedy of the commons with Bitcoin in that, you can be in there, obviously we built a business around educating everyone on Bitcoin, and, I lost a lot of Bitcoin because there is no marketing department. There's nobody to support you. So, I spent 2.5, nearly 3 years of just talking about Bitcoin at my and Jesse and other people's expense that were involved. Where I'm going with this is that other blockchains don't have that problem because they are effectively inventing money out of thin air. They can afford to pay people to promote it, the influencers, etc., and hopefully people then like that project and it gains value. Bitcoin is entirely unique. It's almost a piece of poetry, the way it operates. It doesn't need anybody. Anyone talking about Bitcoin could just disappear, and Bitcoin keeps going. I think it'll be here forever. What I think is interesting for me now is how will Lightning is effectively a layer 2 solution. Are we going to see all sorts of layer 2 solutions on top of Bitcoin in the future, as we see with Ethereum? I'm a fan of Ethereum now. I almost view it as that same base layer as Bitcoin. Bitcoin is obviously still much better because there is nobody in control of this and it can't be shut down. Ethereum, that's not the case. But on a daily basis, we're using all these things built on Ethereum, which are effectively on top of Ethereum in our play-to-earn communities, etc. We don't see that with Bitcoin yet. We're starting to see it with Lightning, but do you see other, a multitude of other sort of layer 2 type solutions flourishing on top of Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think that's things like, Lightning is already pretty complex, and it, although it is 101 stuff now, the building on Lightning stuff is very complex, still to date. Giacomo Zucco working on RGB, tokenization over the Lightning network, which isn't necessarily, tokenization in the way we think, but, data packets and such. I think there is a lot of aim to get a lot of things, liquid sidechain, I like other blockchain applications, I guess, or testing applications or monetary applications within Bitcoin and the Lightning Network in layer 2, in layer 1, whether that's base layer, right, the Bitcoin core network, the liquid side chain, the Lightning Network. I think the Lightning Network is more of where things aim to grow. You know, you already have, so like, you know, a lot of people don't understand, like Lightning Network is already very anonymous Bitcoin. When I send Bitcoin on Lightning Network to you, let's say, and there's, you know, a handful of you know, little lightning zip zaps, right, in order for my Bitcoin to get to your channel and your wallet, right? Every single one of those bounces is an onion rounded bounce. So the only thing that the data that the program will recognize is transaction was sent from party A to party B, but then it'll only say from party B to party C. Then it'll only say from party C to party D, and so forth until you are party, let's say F, okay? And then only from E to F, and then only then you will see an anonymous transaction between two individuals. The only thing that will be known is that you received Bitcoin from this part of the transaction of the Lightning Network, which, let's say, is a node that is operating with you know, intent to keep that on anonymity, or it can be an FBI channel, right? And the FBI channel could say, okay, well, we recognize that Bitcoin was received by us and maybe sent to some identifiable wallet, but still it's onion rounded Bitcoin, which would mean that they would need to run most of the channels, which isn't the case. So Lightning is already very anonymous, you know, speaking about, you know, anonymity and scaling kind of in one feature. So building more features on the Lightning Network, I think, is inevitable. And I think it just makes a ton of sense, especially as we understand it more and it becomes less of a experiment, which many still consider it to be a successful one, into, you know, something that could be greater. I mean, who knows what the future is, and you know, as and on your comment on ETH, you know, yeah, you know, we'll have the talk 10 out of 10 times. We'll probably agree Bitcoin's the best money. Now, as far as other blockchain applications, what can you do? Well, yeah, you can do things on things like ETH. Excuse me. You can carry out other blockchain applications, right? If you wanted to, say, buy Pokemon cards, you can go to a shop. Now, if you wanted to get CryptoKitties or NFTs or some sort of scarce digital artwork, you can also do that. And yes, Ethereum created that. So as a base layer, creating another marketplace, totally see there is something there. Now, yeah, back to the argument of what's the best money. I think we're going to be on the same side of that, you know, war every day. So yeah, I just think that this market has a lot of growth to do, and that does, you know, I would even say, unfortunately, include things like Ethereum, you know, in this space to grow, right? Whether or not that actually happens, or Ethereum migrates to Ethereum 2.0, or any of these promises are delivered upon, is another story. But the market is positioned to accept the fact that these things will work, you know. So is the market positioned to accept that the Lightning works? Yes. Is it also positioned to believe that there's more that will happen on the Lightning Network? I don't think so. I think it's more of a insider type bit of information, you know.
Speaking of parties, for anyone that got lost when Sean and Joe started talking about layer 1 and 2 solutions, because I'm aware
99% of people are lost right now.
Just think of it like,
I'm just so excited to talk Bitcoin.
Just think of it like a beautiful cake, and we're adding different layers of icing to make it more yummy and functional at the party. That's it.
Yep. So, Joe, maybe to finish off, obviously we've talked some technicals. It's ended up being a really fantastic fundamental conversation as well. Let's give the masses what they want. End of year price prediction.
Yeah, you know what? For price prediction, can we jump back to screen share just a minute? We're looking at my chart on the 5-minute right now, and so what has happened? This was a good looking top, you know, a lot of signals up here, and we had a crash. Now, this is I've been calling this a bull trap, and this is what's supposed to happen in a bull trap. Is support has been created. Let's broaden this out to like a 15-minute for a sec here. A bull trap is just this: a move to the upside that got everyone excited that the bull market's back on, right? And it happened, you know, in a lot of successive vertical moves coming out of 37s, you know, a lot of vertical moves out, big vertical moves, right? So we really had this. This is what really got me thinking this is a bull trap, okay? Very like weird vertical stuff kicking us out of what was a pretty decent looking bottom and kicking us out vertically into some decent highs, you know, some decent zones. But I just think that was a little too much for the market to handle. Obviously, we spilled right over. 52K was my call. We went up to 53. Not really out of the league there. And then we started to roll over. We dumped, and then coming out of this dump with support, resistance showed up. Bam, we rolled over again. So now we spilled into where the bull trap is really meant to trap bulls, I think, into the areas where all these people that wanted the bull trap, these sellers, get to sell and they get to dump into massive liquidity zones. And so this is probably going to be like a rinse and repeat type structure where we push into these zones as we have repeatedly. You know, these lows have been pushed, and we've gone even lower than some of what these signals really would have said is a good tradable signal. And that's exactly what, you know, keep in mind I'm not trading, but this is exactly what I would expect out of a bull trap, is support to continue to get annihilated and resistance to chase the book down, which is very clearly happening here. So we're getting resistance chasing the book down, we're getting support just annihilated. Yeah, great bottom, great bounce, great little bounce, great bottom right there. You know, great signals to maybe exit long or whatever. But still, anything, you know, to the upside is just max pain moves to me, and then continuation to the downside into what I believe is bull trap, you know, type structure. Massive amounts of liquidity in the 40,000s, right? Is just ideal. After having spent so much time in the low 30s, now sellers have a chance to sell again at as high as 53. Now, you know, with some strength, you know, without much slippage is what I'm trying to say, in the $40,000 range. I just think it makes a lot of sense that we are still in a bear market. The burden of proof is still on the bulls, and they haven't really done much except, you know, a handful of people vertically pump the market into a bull trap, and now sellers take back over and put a lot of people on the edge of their seat. And once that happens, and we get these moments where price moves down, you get those anxious people that bought in the bull trap to start selling at prices below their entry, and that's when you get these really hard pushes into support. And that's what I'm a little worried about.
Okay.
And to combine that with the resistance chasing the book, that's just very telltale
So
sign.
December.
Oh, hang on, just while you're there, Joe, we'll get to December in a minute because I am actually trading. Not financial advice, people.
It's
You
never
all know that.
financial
We're not allowed
advice.
to do that. Yeah, Joe, if you were trading right now, I got an entry on a long just above 40K on Bitcoin, and I think about 2,800 on ETH. Short-term trades, what would you be thinking in my situation here?
I'm thinking raise that stop loss.
Yeah.
Raise that stop loss. I mean, this is a bull trap, and you know, we're already pushing into sell dominant territory. This is basically SAS 2 with some ETH modifications. This is Ethereum US dollar tether on Binance, and
All the
just
cell walls are there.
yeah, the sell walls are clearly there. The total distance between this aggregation of price, which I believe is 1 to maybe 2.5%, is red, which means that it's a sell dominant side of the book, right? Which is obvious when you just look at the order book itself. And then from the wider book perspective, we've now entered a space where 1 to 10% of the book is bearish, basically. So what I'd say is this is a good time to raise some stops if you got some good entries. Um, I I think that's always good, you know, sound advice. I think stop losses are a mandatory thing that people should engage in. But you know, you have a nice support down here at 41.8. You had a couple of glances right there, glancing blows. I would really think that this is an area I don't want to see Bitcoin price come back to, otherwise it'll go lower. So me personally, I would probably think that, you know, this is our support line that we need to hold. So I would probably raise my stop if I was trading to something like these highs, because once we start getting a lower low than this, then we're probably going to start making more lower lows, and I'd rather take that profit up here at like 42.5 than down at 41.9. So that's just how I would look at
Gotcha.
the market if I was in that trade. And you know, this is all just 2020 hindsight talking. I'm not in the trade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not trading at the moment either, and people that know my style, I don't trade untradeable zones. And there's people that do it very well on low time frames, but this is not my style of trading in chop and uncertainty. So it's yeah.
Okay, the magic question then, to wrap it all up, end of year price target.
End of year target.
Yeah.
December 29.
I've already said I believe Bitcoin will be lower than it is now. Now that's very vague. I know. It's tough. I think the bull trap is over. So if I was to guess 3 months from now, 2 months, 2 months and a week from now, where will we be? I think we'll probably be back around 30,000 to 20,000. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair.
That range? I think
Okay.
once we get back to 30,000, 20,000's on the chopping block, and I think Bitcoin's very stubborn. It's very possible that we will bounce, and this could be you know, some sort of descending structure, right? Bitcoin is so stubborn in bear markets. It lasts so long in bear markets. It makes you wish, oh damn, I bought my Bitcoin, it was going to the moon. Now I need to hold for 3 years and 5 years or whatever until my family starts to acknowledge my existence is, you know, legitimate, right? Bitcoin is so stubborn. It's gonna run everyone through the grinder. Like it has this tendency. So I think it's gonna be drawn out. Two months and a week from now, I would probably more likely bet on the 30K, 35K range than 30 to 20. But you know, you know, into the next year, I'm thinking we will dip our toes into that 20K range. January is historically a pretty bad month, minus last January, maybe one or two other Januaries over the past 10, 11, whatever plus years, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I'm not very bullish right now. I do think that we are looking at some pessimistic targets, and in two months and a week, what can we do? I think 30 to 35K makes a lot of sense. Will we descend and make a structure with more bounces, and the bull trap's done, but now we start to create a descending triangle structure or descending whatever, right? You know, something that includes price discovery along the way up until a point of strong price discovery, which I believe is $10,000. I just don't think that there are hands that agree that Bitcoin is worth anything less than $10,000. I just think there's so much support across the globe for demand in the form of Bitcoin at 10,000. I don't think we're going below. So I think we're going
So
down.
one last question from me. One last one. I mean, obviously, it's probably more of a fundamental question because the charts obviously change by the second. But what sort of time frame do you think we're looking at 100K Bitcoin then?
I think we're looking at like.
You don't have to answer that.
It
is a fundamental one.
I'm gonna answer that. Yeah, you know, look, you know, as an analyst, this, you know, let me answer that with one thing first. As an analyst, what I do is I make predictions from one set of psychologies to the next, and on a small time scale that is doable, on a large time scale that is doable. What do I believe is going to happen on a large time scale, leading us from one psychology to the next to get back to 100K? And how much time will that take specifically? I think at least a year, probably by end of next. I'm betting it's not going to be until at least next December that we're looking at 5-digit Bitcoin, or sorry, six-figure Bitcoin. At least.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering the million questions I've thrown at you today. It's been awesome to have a Bitcoiner on the channel again. Anything in closing from Mathematics or Leanne?
No, I would just say that you know, there's FUD that comes from every angle that tries to ruin, you know, crypto and Bitcoin and everything. Just like in life, right? There's so much forces from different angles that try to attempt to bring people down. You know, I do see that eventually, as a whole, we as people we just kind of we're pretty resilient. And no matter how many people there are out there that willingly accept negative news from every angle and just turn dark, I feel like what we believe in, if we believe in something, that stays strong and can't be stopped. So I love the parallels in crypto and life, and I see it daily. And diamond hands don't just it's not just a crypto thing, you know. Have a diamond life.
Oh yeah.
Be strong and be brave. Don't be a fucking pussy.
Don't be a fucking pussy.
Excellent comments.
can't beat
Leanne,
that.
top that, please.
I think we might have to leave it at don't.
We've
be
lost your video, I think, by the way.
No, we see everyone.
Okay.
Oh, really? Oh, I have.
I agree with what Jesse said. I think the next few months we're going to see a lot more FUD happen, a lot more fear creep in. European, North American winter, I think the propaganda machine's going to hit hard again, and I don't know how people will respond with the markets. So it's something I'm keeping on my toes about. But of course, fundamentally, we're all here for a revolutionary thing like Bitcoin, and I'm diamond handing that. But yes, as Jesse said, have a diamond life, and I think it's a really poignant time to reassess and rethink your future. And if you're pegged into debt and shit and you have no choices in life and you have no choices about how to live your daily life in terms of where you are with your time, we've talked about value on time, it's time to think about the value of your homes, your money, what is valuable to you now. Is it important to have $1 million mortgage and be a slave with no choices? Is it important to you to have a tiny house but be able to spend your day however you like to spend it? Now's the time to think, get the diamond life, voila.
Yep.
I'm not
Well
telling
said.
everybody to live in a tiny house, but you get my point.
I can't top either of those closing comments from you guys, so I guess we'll wrap it up there with just a massive thank you to Joe.
Thank you, Joe. We know
I'm
it's
sure,
late in
yeah.
New York. We really appreciate your insights.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I had a great time too. Thank you, Sean and Leanne and everybody. Like this was obviously me and Sean were really going back and forth most of the time here, but I did love it. Yeah, I loved
He
it.
had his fix because we usually just hang shit on him. So
Yeah, that's true. This is for you.
Look, I mean, it was a Bitcoin only channel for a number of years, so it's great.
got back to the
I'd love
roots
to
today.
make more Bitcoin content. So,
Yep.
hope you learned something today, people. We're obviously an education channel. We're here to help. So, comments below. Link to Joe's channel as well. And we will see you all tomorrow, where we will be streaming on Twitch for the gamers out there. Come and join us. See you tomorrow, everyone.
See ya.